Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And we are here for another episode. We've been talking about weaponized incompetence. You know what it is. And we've been talking about household responsibilities. Then we got into sex. And today we're talking about finances. That's one of the biggest issues most people talk about.
Yeah.
So if you are ready, grab a pad, grab a pen, and make sure you listen. Before we get started, you got to do this. You got to do this.
You got to like, share, and subscribe. I didn't know you was tossing me the ball just now, but do that, guys. Make sure that you're sharing it so that people learn about the Couples Academy Show all around the world. Thank you very much in advance.
Also, guys, there's a lot coming up this coming month. Actually, this year. Let's start with this.
What are we talking about? Oh, the Phoenix Awards Gala, guys. If you have not heard about it yet, definitely make sure that you go on phoenixawardsgala.org. There you can find out more about the Phoenix Awards Gala, what we're doing, and you can nominate someone. So make sure that you do that. Nominate a couple that deserves to be acknowledged for just whatever impact they're making in the world. Every couple goes through things. Let's just be real. Like every couple has a testimony, okay? So don't count anybody out. But some couples stand the test of time, they get through the adversity, and they make impact. So we want to hear about those couples. So make sure you nominate, and don't forget to get your tickets. It's going to be an incredible experience.
Link is in the description. Just click on it. What is the website?
It is phoenixawardsgala.org.
Boom. All right. And last but not least, Last Chance Weekend. It is coming fast approaching June 13th. through the 15th. Make sure you register for that. It's going to be an amazing opportunity for you to transform your relationship, to take it to the next level. What do you listen, there's so many people who are going through so many situations and just wait forever to get the job done. I've had people who've experienced betrayals. And so the question is, well, is it too early? Should we take more time? Should we just wait a while before we jump into counseling? Because, and I said, well, it can never be too early, but it can be too late. And there's some couples who literally take too long and their relationship has reached such a dead-end space that it's hard to perceive that there's any way back.
When it comes to finances in particular?
No. We're
just
talking
in general.
about a Last Chance Weekend, getting help, going to counseling, whether it's incompetence that you're experiencing in your relationship, whether it's betrayal, whether it's emotional disconnect, whatever it is, you cannot start the process too early, but it can be too late.
That's true. I mean, it's too late when people have packed up their bags and moved out a lot of times. Sometimes we get that. We get people calling us and they're like, I really want to work on my marriage. I don't want it to fail. I don't want to give up. And we're like, okay, what's the status? And we find out that the partner has moved out like 8 months ago. When's the last time you heard from this person? 8 months ago. So come on, like, let's get ahead of that. Like before it gets to that point, make the call. It's just an inquiry call. Number one, it's a free discovery call, right? So it's your opportunity to express the concerns that you have and an opportunity for us to discover whether or not we're a good fit for you. Exactly. So definitely reach out. It's easy to get a discovery call. Just go on the website, couplesacademy.org, and click discovery call.
All right. We're talking about weaponized incompetence. So Danielle, you started us off and laid a foundation for what weaponized incompetency is. Yeah. Once again, break that down. And then we're going to go into
interesting.
Finances.
Perfect. It's interesting because I heard about this weaponized incompetency through multiple women and websites, and I started finding videos and things, and I'm like, oh, wow, weaponized incompetency. So basically, it's when somebody is intentionally acting incompetent so that they can basically log off and not have to participate in things that are shared responsibilities. That's what it is in a nutshell, right? But then when we started talking about it, we realized that weaponized incompetency, it actually permeates the facets of every relationship, multiple situations. Like there are so many scenarios that we experience working here at Couples Academy where there is an absolute weaponized incompetency taking place. You've had this struggle. The spouse has complained about it for years and years and years, and you've made no effort to improve it. Now you're stepping away from it, and there's crisis in your life. Sure. And that's the point. It causes little micro crisis in your life that you have to deal with because somebody else won't step up to the plate.
And so we're talking about it in the context of finances because It is one of the top reasons why people struggle in relationships. And we all come from different backgrounds. We all manage money different. We all have a different emotional attachment to it. Some of us value it highly. Some of it don't have a value for it. And it impacts what we do with it, how we spend it, how we save it, where we invest it, our risk tolerance, all these different things. And when you have these two different worlds coming together in marriage, it can be a clash of cultures where you're struggling back and forth. But beyond just the basics of the conflicts that couples experience, sometimes we talked about incompetence in so many different areas. One spouse is looking for the other spouse to step up in their knowledge, in their know-how of finances, because it takes two to make a thing go right. It can't just be one person. And oftentimes one person feels like, I've got all the weight and responsibility of the finances, and it's unfair because what you do impacts me, impacts us, impacts our kids as well.
For sure. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead of you, but there's so many scenarios in my head that I'm thinking about when it comes to that. You know, you always have the spender and the saver. That's just basic, right? Somebody's spending, somebody's saving. But if your spending is like, you know, impinging on the person's responsibility to save and prepare for the future, now that's a micro crisis. Or if your saving makes the person feel in bondage and trapped and they can't do anything, that's a problem. And so this is an area where somebody needs to come to the plate and learn how to manage this money so that there's not, both people are competent.
Yeah.
Both people have to come to the table and learn some level of competency. There can always be somebody who leads in one area and be stronger. That's just what it is. Like, he ain't never going to be able to touch me in the kitchen. Let's just be clear, right? But that doesn't mean that he can't learn some things. He can't chop up some vegetables and, you know how to wash something and make a good salad. And you know what I mean? Like, so at the end of the day, it's about us all, both of us as a couple, learning and growing together. If you're the same couple and with the same issues and struggles and the same incompetencies today that you were 10 years ago, that's kind of problematic.
It is. Before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge Brandon Snake. He says communication about finances is huge. My wife recently lost her job of 11 years. Our bills are and will continue to be paid. Me being the only income is rough, but communication is making it easier.
For sure.
I tell you.
Thank you.
Really, communication is the number one skill that has to be developed, because your inability to effectively communicate will create more financial stress on a marriage. For sure. And whatever your experiences are regarding finances, put them in the text. We want to know what it is. Have you gone through challenges in your relationship? Are you two on one accord? Before we get to incompetency, Danielle and I had a different upbringing, different way of managing finances. So it was a pain point. It was a stressor. And so we got to the point where we needed to rely on the wisdom and expertise of someone else who helped change the way that we as a couple began to function in finances. That was the beginning of our journey many, 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 many years ago. And so the fights that we normally had, those began to dissipate. And then it got to a point where, okay, we're doing all right. We're making a little bit of money. We need more. So we
need more.
You can always use more money.
More money.
But we need more in terms of, okay, now that we're here, how do we take this to the next level? And then we got business coaches, financial coaches.
Exactly.
And we always reference them here on the show. And we've interviewed them, right? Martin and Chelsea Matthews, who are phenomenal when it comes to finances. So if you don't have someone, you need someone to get it right.
Yeah. Can I jump on that? Because, I don't want to rush past the fact that we actually had to submit under somebody else in order for us to move forward, because that was a total roadblock for us. Finances was a roadblock for us. Both of us, well, I'm more the spender, but he's a spender and a saver. So it ebbs and flows, right? The spending and the saving. And so because, we were never on the same page about finances, it was just either of conflict or just a roadblock. Like, we're not moving past this. You go do you, I'm going to go do me. Conflict. When we found somebody that we could submit under, who had the knowledge, the education, who had a background, who had receipts to prove, like, no pun intended, receipts to prove the impact of doing things a certain kind of way. And we said, shush, and we shushed and submitted under that leadership. It was a mega game changer. Number one, I was able to have confidence in a system, because a lot of times couples have lost all confidence in their spouse to be able to do anything or manage finances. They don't want to feel controlled, or they feel like the person has no control. It's either one or the other. And so at the same time, I was able to relax under the leadership of somebody who was a professional, and Hassani was also able to relax under that leadership. And so now we are looking up to somebody else together. And that was huge for us. It was a game changer. And so to Hassani's point, as we grew and as finances changed, the competency that we learned sitting under somebody together was something that now we could actually communicate. And now he and I get to grow together because we sat under somebody else to train us and bring us up. That's key.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely key. Let's get into the thinking of the person who we would consider in this case to be the incompetent one as relates to the finances. And oftentimes the lack of competency is based upon a mindset, a belief system, a lack of intentionality and effort. So when you hear things like, and if you can relate to some of these, I'm just not good with numbers. Right. It's just not my thing.
That's not my thing.
OK, you're better at paying the bills anyway. So why don't you just do it? So with all the other responsibilities I have, now I got to pay every single bill. OK. I don't know how this banking app works. Like I'm just
technical
not technical
difficulties.
Like really?
Learn.
Oops, I forgot to pay it again. Right. So now the responsibility is on you, or maybe it's shared. Yeah. And I'm the one handling it. And you keep dropping the ball, missing the deadline, impacting us. It's costing more money. It's impacting our credit. And these type of things are the things that lead to stress in a relationship.
Sure. And think about, this wasn't mentioned in there, but there's other financial irresponsibilities that take place, like taking money and doing things with it without telling your spouse, hoping that whatever investment is going to go well, or whatever you're going to do, they'll never know that the money was gone. You'll put it back before it gets, found out. Those are those things that create a tremendous amount of financial insecurity inside your relationship, because you don't know when somebody's going to go in the account and just do something reckless with your future. That your money is your future. That's how you live, eat, all the things. And so that's one. And then gambling is huge. A lot of people recreationally gamble. But then you have people that it's kind of teetered over into something else where they can't stop gambling, right? And they're losing finances, and they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And all of this is affecting the household income.
And at the end of the day, like, if you two are in agreement about whatever you do, that's the key. The point is, you don't talk, you don't know, you're making independent, autonomous decisions that your spouse doesn't know about, hoping that they won't find out, hoping that it'll never be revealed. But at the end of the day, the bank account says non-sufficient funds yet again. What is this transaction fee for? What is this about? Why is our account, in the negative? Because you two weren't on the same page. It could be as simple as you two have debit cards to the same account, and you're spending here, she or he is spending there, and then not communicating, and then boom, they start trickling in, and now you're in a financial situation.
For sure.
And so when it comes to competency, like when one person isn't competent and the other person is, it's forcing one spouse, in essence, to become like the CFO of the relationship. They handle the bills, they handle the budget, they handle the taxes, the investments, they handle all of the emergencies. And to Danielle's point, in your relationship, you have to delegate responsibilities. As she just said, you don't want me cooking for the family, because that's just not going to go well, right? So we all have a role to play, and we all have areas, but it's okay to invite your spouse into a conversation and to allow them to in some way partake in what's being done, so that it's not overwhelming and stressful on one person.
Facts. What is the chat saying? Are we getting any amens and hallelujahs in there?
We're getting something in here, right?
But what's your next point? Because one thing that I will say is that this is easier said than done for many people, right? Because people are not on the same page financially. And then also couples manage their finances very differently depending on the household. Some people, I don't even know what your finances are. We have a joint account, whatever's in there is what we know, but you don't know what I've personally got going on. And so there's an incompetency there too, because I've had conversations with couples like this who they still don't know what their future looks like. You know, you're married and you know what's in this account, right? Because this is the account we pay bills in and all this and that, but we don't come together and have a collective conversation about what is our household financial status look like. You know, I don't know what's in your account. You don't know what's in my account. And we've done this so long, we don't know any other way to be. And then you have one partner who just really doesn't need you to know. I don't need you to know what's in my account. I'm good and we're going to be good, you know? So that is another incompetency. You literally handicap each other because it's hard to plan for the future without understanding what your financial landscape looks like.
This is what we would call a power imbalance, because one has full knowledge of while the other may remain completely clueless, thus making the clueless person completely dependent upon the other person. And it may breed from trust issues. It may breed from ego, you know, just the way many people feel gender roles need to play out in a relationship. When it comes to the money, I'm the man, I'm in charge, I'm the head. Or some women may have that mentality too.
That's
I
real.
I make more than you.
Okay,
so
with a tude.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, right? So we see that. That's a challenge. That speaks to one of the areas, right? Because if you don't have the right relationship with money, it will impact your relationship with your partner.
For sure.
So if the mentality is, if I make 50 cents more an hour, so now I become the ruler and the architect of all things concerning finances, that's a problem.
It is. Especially if you're the person that's making the money, but doesn't know how to manage it, can't save it, don't know how to spend it, don't know anything about growing it. You know, that's toxic because now you're just hoarding all the money, making all the decisions, being reckless. And again, you're not building a financial house, as our people say. Yeah.
True. So I think a lot of people feel financially manipulated, abused, subjected in their relationship because one takes on this dominant position, an unhealthy position. Now, think about it. When it comes to being a leader, we all should be leaders. But if this pillar of a leader within you is leaning to the left or leaning to the right, you become a brute. You could become a tyrant. You could become very tyrannical when it comes to the finances, and it can rip your relationship apart. Like every couple is dealing with something different. Some people deal with betrayal. Some people deal with communication issues. Some people deal with finances because it's a huge pain point. And it seems like the way we've been doing it, things are getting worse, not better. So why not just make a decision to change and do something different?
And money is so emotional, isn't it? Like it is such an emotional subject, and sometimes it is just not something that you can manage yourself. You know, like we're telling you that there are some financial incompetencies going on and this is being weaponized. Okay. Yes. So the person who is wielding the weapon isn't likely to say, you know what, I heard the show, let me stop wielding this weapon. You really need to find somebody that you can sit under that both of you respect. And I think that was the key, that, you know, if one person says, hey, this person online, I like them, let's go with them, and then they don't respect that, you're going to be in the same place. You need to find somebody that is so high level above where you're at and is where you want to be, that you both have mutual respect for this leadership and you both submit under that leadership.
It's so interesting because let's just say, as an example, you're the financial guru in the relationship. I know it, you know more about finances than I, but because I don't trust you, I'm not following your lead in that space. Now, what does that do to you? That pisses you off because now we got to go out to somebody else, right, and get the same advice and hear what you just said. So sometimes the underlying issue isn't finances because we both are aware of what's going on. It's the trust.
Right. And another layer to what you just said, because I hope you heard that, but also there are situations where the financial leader has shown incompetencies countless times. Like you're the one in charge making all the decisions, but we're still struggling. The bills are still not paid. We're still in debt. You know, things keep falling apart. And so that's another reason why a spouse would not have trust and not want to follow that leadership. And so you have to look at the whole picture, but whatever it is, you know, if you're in that situation, because this is a serious one. Like I think this is probably up there right underneath underneath the complaints of a woman having to do all the work and coming home and having a second job, because that's a big one.
Yeah.
This is a big one, the finances. And you're going to need to find somebody that you can submit under, because it is going to be too difficult for the person who feels like I just have no say and I am like, I am under this person's thumb, whatever the case may be, for you to go approach him and say, listen, this is what I want out of our finances. You're not going to get far. That's the struggle. Mm-hmm. They see it differently than you. So you're going to have to find somebody who you both see eye to eye with and submit under. That is, to me, ground zero to fix this incompetency.
For sure. That's step number one. Step number two is, once you've been submitted to someone, whether it's a financial advisor, whoever it is, and they give you a game plan, you have to listen, you have to play by the rule book.
Yes.
Each of you have roles and responsibilities in this plan. Like, think about it. For any of you who watch sports, basketball, baseball, football, when it's a team sport, you have different players on the team, different positions. They have different roles and different responsibilities. So from a financial perspective, what position are you playing and what is your role? What position am I playing and what is my role? Because I'm going to tell you, teams will fight. They'll fight in practice, but they will fight in the game as well if one's not showing up, doing what they need to do. In those type of situations, you get benched, you eventually get cut, you eventually suffer all types of consequences because you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a team member. And so it's very frustrating when there's a team of two, the power of two, right? Where I'm doing all the work, you're not, and we know what we need to do, but because of your lackluster, casual, mindset and approach, we continue to suffer. Or
your know-it-allness. Like, sometimes it's hard to unknow what you know. Sometimes you need to forget everything you think that you know. Because we all come up doing things a certain kind of way. If you saw your mother and your grandmother save in jars and you grew up in that household, remember back in the day, some of us remember we would go to grandpa's house or grandma's house and they would have whole water jugs, like, those 5-gallon jugs of coins. And that's what their belief system was, that I ain't putting nothing in the bank. They had all their money under a mattress. Now, maybe there's some relevance to that these days. But anywho, back to the point. If that's all you saw, then that's what you're bringing in to this relationship. And so sometimes what you think is right is based on your perspective, your lens, your upbringing, what you saw. It's not what's right. It's a way somebody did it. And so that is why when you're talking about playing the game, if you're sitting under somebody's tutelage who knows the way, they have receipts, they have shown you all the testimonials, okay? And this person is actually somewhere you want to be, you've got to forget everything that you know, start with a clean slate and just submit and play your position.
Facts.
Play your position. Close your eyes. It's called the blind trust walk, because when it comes to money, because it's so emotional, it's scary a lot of times to do these things. Like, people don't invest because they're terrified. The word invest, what if I lose it all? What if you gained all? What if you understood more about investing and understood that not everything is super risky, right? And so a lot of things really is about you understanding and getting under the right training to know what to do, and then just play your position.
Absolutely. So listen, maybe you need help right now. Maybe you're like, you know what? We've been struggling with this for this amount of time. It's time to figure this thing out. Listen, you need to know that you could reach out to people. Now, we're not financial experts, but we do help you navigate through all of the emotional things that may be impacting your relationship. People watch this show every single day. Some still don't know what we do. So we're going to take a quick break, show you what our services are. Reach out to us so that we can support you. Stand by.
Welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Couples Academy show, and you just watched one of our powerful, impactful Last Chance weekends, guys. And we have them how often?
Once a month.
Every
second weekend.
Every second week,
every
right.
month.
So this one is coming up is on the 13th through the 16th, 15th. Okay, so definitely make sure that you reach out. You can find us on couplesacademy.org. Now, I do want to say that we are not, like we started to say, we're not financial experts, but we have submitted over the years to countless amazing, incredible financial experts. And I do want to give a shout out to M Wealth Group, who is run by Martin and Chelsea Matthews, and they are phenomenal. We don't get a credit or a kickback or anything like that, but they are a friend of the show, and some of you have seen them here and there and everywhere with the events that we do, but they are incredible. And one of the things I love most about them, in addition to them helping us grow our wealth, is that they are such a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
Like they are an open book, and they literally give you the keys to the kingdom in a conversation. And so if I were you, I would reach out to them. I don't know if the website is the same.
We'll put a link in there.
They're always commenting. You'll see their comments all around. But
they're brilliant people.
They're brilliant. Yeah.
And so, once again, they deal with some high level things, but they also deal with some practical things. One of the practical areas that people struggle with that speaks to this incompetency is budget avoidance. Now, some people, when they hear the word budget, it feels like a trap. It feels like I'm ensnared, I'm in handcuffs, budget, where the other person is just like, if it weren't for the budget, like we need a budget because it speaks to financial responsibility and living in today, but also planning for the future. And I think our concept of time impacts how we approach money. For those who want to live for today, because guess what? Tomorrow's not promised. They may be someone who, listen, I want to enjoy what today has to offer. Let's spend it. People who are always focused on the future. Well, what about tomorrow? What about next month? What about next year?
Yeah.
They will deprive themselves sometimes in extremes and prepare for a future, right? And I think having a healthy balance between the two is so critically important.
I think a lot of people who are afraid of budgets, to your point, it's because they don't understand what budgets are. If you compare a budget, you can compare a budget to a vision board for your finances. And I learned this years ago in the marketing space, working with 7-figure coaches who had to project every year what the budget was going to be, what the profits were going to be. And I would be sitting there thinking like, you just going to make up a number? Yes, we're going to make up a number. And then we're going to backfill how we're going to make this number. Budgets are actually really exciting when you think about it, right? Not just managing where the money goes, but also projecting how much money are we going to make, right? And how are we going to spend this money? Where is it going to go? It's actually really exciting. So if you love doing vision boards and vision casting for your future and looking at, pictures of you getting fit and going on vacation, you need to look at budgeting in the same way because it's just doing that with numbers.
Yeah. I agree with you 1000%. Like, how do you know what your future is going to be unless you create it? They say the best way to predict your future is to create one. And you have to put things out on paper and live your life according to what you put on paper and stick to the plan. Because if you stick to the plan, you will create and manifest whatever your mind or your collective marriage mind came up with. But Danielle, you kind of touched on this earlier, but I want to circle back around to it because a major pain point which speaks to incompetency in a relationship is the lack of transparency. So to your point,
yes.
like I've got my money and I'm going to spend my money however I want to spend my money. I made a decision that was a good purchase or a good investment, and I did it. And I didn't think I needed to tell you about what's happening in my account, right? And so it's not just about finances. Couples struggle with transparency, period. See, this is why we can speak to this topic, because the fruit issue may be that transaction, you didn't tell me about it, and now we're in a conflict. But if you always make it about the fruit and not the root of it, the root is, I don't feel like I need to tell you everything. I don't feel like you need to know. That speaks to a deeper issue. When that issue is resolved, then you see that solutions will show up in your financial world.
For sure. But I think that's a big issue. Like this also goes back to, root and cause behavior. Like, why am I so closed to intimacy and transparency in the first place? It's not going to just show up in the money. It's going to show up in all areas. And so this might be a person that just has a problem disclosing things about themselves. Yeah. They're a private person and they just have to have a mindset shift. But that's huge because if I see huge purchases, coming in the door all the time, and I don't know how much money they have, I'm now I feel more threatened about my future because, we're not talking about somebody did some Amazon shopping, even though that could be a thing too, right? Mm-hmm. but within budget, within already established budget. But anyway, what we're talking about is like, people coming home with like a brand new car. I mean, that's a $50,000, $60,000 purchase.
That's real.
Yeah. And so it's just like, okay, you done spent $60,000, $80,000 on a new car. How much money do you have? And how much money do we now no longer have? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the questions that are asked because there's no financial transparency.
And the problem is when you made that decision, whether it was well thought out or impulsive, I now have to suffer the consequences of your independent, autonomous decision. In the book, Lovebusters, by Willard Harley, he talks about the 6 things that destroy romantic love. One of them, independent decisions. So it could be, I made a decision to purchase this car. Listen, it could be, Danielle, as crazy as this sounds, I was working with a couple where the husband made a decision to buy a house on his own, independent of his spouse. She did not know. This dude just bought a house and justified it because of what he had or what was coming in. But let's flip it. It's not just about purchases. I was working with a couple years ago. We talked about this. This guy comes home from work one day and says, hey, by the way, I quit my job. And she was just like, what? You quit your what? Yeah, I quit my job. Well, why didn't you tell? Like, shouldn't that have been a conversation that we should have had? I'm a grown man. This is my job. I don't show up every single day.
Yes.
I'm stressed.
Yes.
I didn't like it. Right. I made a decision to quit.
Yeah.
And her thing was, well, we have houses. We have kids in school. There are family members who rely upon us. Like now the financial burden is solely on me. So the incompetence in this space was the lack of transparency, the secrecy, the justification of making independent, autonomous decisions that doesn't serve the marriage well.
I mean, can you believe that? Like the impact of that. First of all, there's a major impact if somebody gets fired. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's a crisis and that wasn't even decided upon or intentional.
Right.
But for you to just come home and say, I quit. What's the plan? Are you just kicking your feet up? You retiring early? Shouldn't we discuss this? This is why this is such a hot button topic.
And we know about financial struggle. Like I didn't quit my job, but I remember years ago when we were much younger, living in New Jersey, had little kids, how I was fired from 2 jobs in the
one
same
day.
I remember the first job.
Those were my praying days. I was praying hard then.
It was like 10 a.m. It's just like, well, you could have called. I could have stayed in the bed. You could have called me. I dressed up, went into the office, and they were like, matter of fact, it wasn't even like when I first got there. It was a couple hours in. Like so I had to put in all this work. Called me into the office. He said, listen, here's a box. Pack your bags. This is your last day. And I'm like, huh? Why? He gave me an explanation. I had to leave. So now I have no job.
Yeah, spending gas to get there.
I don't have 5 hours till my next shift.
Right.
I'm not going home to tell this woman that I just lost my job. So I parked in a parking lot across the street from our housing complex and sat there for hours trying to figure out how I'm going to tell this woman what just happened. So I stall, I buy my time, I wind up going to the second job. As soon as I got through the door, they said, listen, can I talk to you for a second? Didn't pull me into the back, pulled me into an alley and said, listen, take off your apron. I was a server at the time. This is going to be your last day. 2 jobs in the same day. You talk about financial hardship, but it spoke to maybe incompetency I had in those particular fields that didn't allow me to excel. And so my incompetency now has an impact on our entire family dynamic.
But you know what's interesting about that? Because I remember parts of that. It's so long ago, but I just remember thinking to myself, like, this means that you're not wired for this. You know, this means that you're wired for greater. right? The incompetency in that, or whatever the jobs were, meant that you needed to be moving in another direction. And sometimes I think that people aren't looking at it that way. You know, they're like, I'm calling in the towel, throwing in the towel, I'm calling it quits, I'm not good at this. They fall into depression instead of looking at the windows that are open. Where are the open opportunities where you would shine? Because at the time, you were also here and there speaking all over the country.
This is true.
You know, people were calling on you to speak and do their conferences. And so while that area wasn't shining bright and that was a struggle bus, you were beaming over here, and understanding that this was the direction to go to meant a lot of financial sacrifice, a lot of struggle bus, a lot of time, prayer, sweat, tears, blood. But at the end of the day, that was the path, and it proved itself to be that.
And this is why having the right partner at the right time in the right seasons, giving you the right words is so critically important, because I could have spiraled. I mean, think about a man, a husband, a provider, being responsible for the financial, well-being of the household. That's one of our major contributions to the marriage, and it impacting me. Right. And so it could be a blow to our manhood, our masculinity, our self-esteem, our everything. Now, she could have been a snarling beast, but she absolutely wasn't. It was the encouragement. It was the prayer. It was the you can do this. It was the pivot. When she said, well, maybe this is not what you're wired for. You need to be doing this. See, in that moment, here's the statement we make all the time. If you change the way you look at a thing, the thing that you look at changes. So while I saw the loss of these two jobs through one lens, I was able to give an ear to my wife, who saw it from a completely different lens that changed my perspective, which allowed the quantum leap. Because as long as I was in those jobs, we were just over broke anyway, right? Job for me meant just over broke. This allowed us to accelerate. Now, there was a setback before the quantum leap, because it never works there's no straight line to success.
No.
And so that's the challenge. When you make these destiny decisions to do something different, it will have an immediate consequence. And so you'll look at the consequences and say, well, maybe this is what we weren't supposed to do this. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we had it wrong, but it's all a part of the process.
Absolutely. I mean, you just said it so perfectly. And I love the transition, because this speaks to what you might be needing to do. Right? When it comes to getting yourself competent in your finances for your household, there will feel like a setback. You're going to lose some sense of control. You're not going to be spending as much as you start to kind of take in the landscape of what your money is doing. You're sitting under the leadership of someone else who's telling you what to do. It can feel like a setback, but it really is. It really, truly is setting you up for a quantum leap forward. You just have to have the patience and the willingness to learn something new, because what you're doing ain't working. I mean, I know you're tired of your spouse coming to you complaining about money all the time. I know you're tired of divorce threats and rebellious activity, people going off and doing what they need to do, or just the insecurity of not knowing what your future looks like. So that just means you need to be doing something different.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, I hope this was helpful. What a great conversation. What a very much needed conversation. Oftentimes the things that we need the most, we'll deal with that later, but you need to deal with it now. Because what you do today, somebody once said that the secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. So what you do today has a tremendous impact on your tomorrow. So have the conversation, sit down with your spouse, grab a pad, grab a pen, go through the notes of what we're talking about and see how you can implement this into your marriage so that we can wipe incompetency completely away and have a thriving, successful, financially rewarding marriage that you both can be proud of.
Yes.
Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We'll see you tomorrow for another great episode. Take care.